I will introduce terminology in AOP first, then we'll do some small programming parallel. Previously when I was writing proxy, which class was containing cross-cutting code? Logging handler? Yes. When I am writing dynamic, when I am writing code for dynamic proxies on my one, logging handler is a class which is containing cross-cutting code, right? But in Spring AOP, aspect-oriented programming, a class which contains cross-cutting code is called as an advice. Okay. Till now I didn't use the term called aspect. It will come slowly. You'll get the meaning of what is aspect-oriented programming slowly. But let me introduce the terminology one by one. Advice is a class which contains the cross-cutting code, right? And there are various types of advices. These are types of advices. Before advice, an advice which has to be executed before the method. Something which has to be executed before the method. We keep it inside something called the before advice. After returning advice means if you want some logic to be executed after the method returns successfully, then you will keep it inside after returning advice. Then when you call a method, it may throw some exception. You want some logic to be executed when an exception is thrown, then you will encapsulate it inside something called the after-throwing advice. You want to do something before executing the method, after returning the from the method, and also after throwing exception. Everything you want to do, you can keep that inside something called as an around advice. Now let us see how to write your own advice and how to create proxies using Spring. I told only about advice till now. Okay. If you want to write a before advice, you need to write a class implementing method before advice, and there is a method called before which is taking the parameters similar to invoke method object parameters and that, right? So in this before method you can write what all logic you want to be executed before the method is executed, right? Once you write this is just like a logging handler. Once I write logging handler, I need to generate a proxy by using proxy.new instance. Here also I want to generate a proxy by using Spring AOP. Spring. So to generate a proxy, there is a class called proxy factory bin. We already saw some factory bins yesterday. JNDI object factory bin. It creates a bin. Factory bins basically creates a bin. JNDI object factory bin looks up the JNDI and returns the value from the JNDI. Proxy factory bin is a factory bin which will create proxies. Right? See, this is a bin for our previous advice. Logging before advice which I showed you in the earlier slide. Then I want to create a proxy which will be using this advice, right? For an arithmetic calculator class. Now see here, I am creating a bin. Class is equals to r.springframework.aop.framework proxy factory bin. Spring is creating a proxy now. For that I need to tell what all the interfaces which the proxy has to implement. So this is the dependency for this proxy factory bin, proxy interfaces. It's a list. So I have to write all interfaces which the proxy has to implement. And what is the target for the proxy? Arithmetic calculator object, the bin. And what are the interceptor names? Interceptors are nothing but something like advices. Advice will be intercepting, right? The code inside advice will be executed before or after, right? So interceptor names you can specify a list of advices, right? So when I will say now factory.getBin arithmetic calculator proxy, you will be getting a proxy for this target, and that proxy will be implementing these interfaces which will be applied all these interceptors, right? And let us try to write a simple example on this. We will try to write our own before advice first. Yeah, any doubts? Okay, now let us write our own before advice and try to create a proxy, and then let us see how to use this before advice. I'm creating a new project, Spring project. advices, Spring advices. Next. Next. Libraries, I add those libraries. Now simply copy the calculator interface and calculator IMPL from your previous project. We will create a proxy for them only right now. Keep them in a package. Okay, now I'm going to write logging handler, new class, logging before advice. It should implement which interface? Method before advice interface. Method before advice. Here is the method. Now first one is method object and second one is parameters, third one is the target object. Here I want to write the cross-cutting code which should be executed before system.out.println. I'll say before executing plus method object dot get name will give the name of the method plus with parameters plus just to print all the arrays as a string. So this is the code which I wrote. Now I want to create a proxy with this advice. Okay, I'm writing the XML, new XML bean configuration file, advices.xml. Next, take the context. Next, finish. Now I'll create a bean for arithmetic calculator. IMPL ID is equals to calc also. Then I will create a bean for my advice, logging before advice, class is equals to logging before advice. Then I have to write for proxies, bean. So first write until this, I will tell you. Now I want to generate a proxy for this calc. So I'm writing a bean ID is equals to calculator, calc proxy. Class is equals to proxy factory name. proxy factory bin. It is having some dependencies when you tell about proxy interfaces. So see the dependency property name is equals to proxy interfaces. See what is its type? Set interfaces. It's of type class array. Array means we can configure it by using list. Value, what is it? Com dot sapient dot arithmetic calculator. The interface name you are right. Okay, now I have a doubt.
Property names, how you can identify for string classes.
Property proxy interfaces.
But I should have some knowledge about that particular factory bin which I am using, right?
This is the factory bin, yeah. It is Spring specific class.
See, like some mandatory properties which I need to initialize. How I will know it? Like
one thing is see the documentation, and otherwise you know the documentation where it is located, right? Here in this one docs, you can see the documentation here. Or you have to remember like this. Okay, I have one doubt. See, proxy interface is it's of type class array, right? Array of class objects. But what am I passing? Strings, right? String has to be converted to class object. Yesterday we understood how to convert string to a particular object by using headers. We wrote our own headers yesterday, but there are some predefined headers. There is a class called class header. There is a header called class header which knows how to convert class names to class objects, right? There is a predefined class header, right? That's how it is working. Proxy interfaces. Then the next thing is we need to know what is the target. Target is a reference to calc object. Then we need to tell about total advices. Name is equals to interceptor names. Interceptor names is an array of strings. So array means again I can specify it as a list. Value, and this is the interceptor logging before advice. It's a value. So that's it. So now if I say factory.getBin calc proxy, I'll get the proxy. That's all. I'll try to use it. I will write a demo class. And take main method. Create an object of application context. New class for XML application context, which is taking advices.xml. The name is advices.xml. Then context dot get bean. What is the bean name? Bean name I gave as calc proxy. And I want it to be of type arithmetic calculator, because the proxy will be implementing this interface. I can directly take it like this. Then I'll call calc dot add and I'll pass 10 comma 20. Now if I run, let us see if the logic in before advice is executed or not. Let's see. Before executing add with parameters 10 comma 20 and this is the value which I printed, right? So whatever I wrote inside before advice has been executed. After returning advice means if you want to execute some logic after the method has been returned successfully, then you can write this inside after returning advice. You have to write a class which is implementing after returning advice and implement a method called after returning. Here this method is executed after returning, right? You have the access to return value first parameter, right? And these are all the normal things which you had in before also. The method object, arguments for method and target object. Here the extra thing is return value. You will have access to return value, you can print it. Okay. Now write it. I'll show you how to use more than one advice inside the proxy. Logging after advice. Implements after returning advice. First one is the return value. Second one is the method object. Third one is the parameters. Fourth one is the target. Here I will just write a log statement system.out.println. The method plus method dot get name plus returned plus return value, right? So this is how I wrote a simple after returning advice. Then after writing this, go to the XML and declare a bean for this. Logging after advice class is equals to logging after advice, and you can see just you have to add one more value to the list of interfaces. Now can you guess here, if I say get calc proxy, it will return a proxy which will be applied to these two interceptors. Will I get a proxy to proxy or a single proxy now? You will get a single proxy of course, but that proxy is not a proxy to the original target. It is actually a proxy to proxy. Like I told you, right? When I was having validator, logging handler, and validation handler and logging handler, proxy to proxy. Here we will be getting a proxy to proxy. One proxy will be having this as this interceptor. One proxy will be having this one. So here in this case, we'll be getting a proxy to proxy. So now if you run it, you'll get the same output with the expected output. See, before, this is a one from before advice, this is a one from after returning advice, this is the actual result. Yeah, tell me.
By giving that interceptor name and the section,
Huh.
if I have only one
So the next thing, after throwing advice, means this will be executed only if exception is thrown. So you have to implement throws advice and you have to write a method like after throwing. Let us write it. There is one small thing which you need to understand here. I'll write a class implementing logging throws advice. Logging throws advice implements throws advice. Now see, is this interface having any methods? Earlier we are getting the methods before and after. This interface does not have any methods, but we have to write a method with this similar signature. We have to write a method with name after throwing, which is taking the exception. Suppose you want this advice to be executed only for illegal argument exception, you can write it. You can write the argument type as illegal argument exception. Suppose if you want this to be executed only for something like say array index out of bounds exception, you can write it. So you can decide for which exception it should be executed based upon the parameter. Suppose if you want this method to be executed for all exceptions, then make it superclass exception or throwable, right? So this throws advice is not having any method, but we have to write a method after throwing which will take exception object. Okay. Okay, now I'll put it in a different way. You want some logic to be executed when some exception X occurs. You want a different logic to be executed when exception Y occurs. So you can decide for what exception what logic to be executed. Right? You can write overloaded methods also. Overloaded methods also after throwing one with illegal argument exception, one with array index out of bounds exception, you can write, and you can write accordingly the logics whatever you want, right? And also in this throws advice, these are the optional parameters. See, you can write after throwing with these parameters also. Previously I said only exceptions argument, the mandatory one. These all are optional. See, the signature of the method should be like this. After throwing, whatever is kept inside the square bracket are optional, and this is mandatory, either throwable or in subclass of throwable. These are all optional parameters. Suppose in this method you may want to access a method object to access the method name which calls this exception. You can take this method parameter optional. These are optional. So these three are optional, and this is mandatory one in after throwing. Next one, around advices. Fourth type of advice. If you want to do something before, after, and after throwing exception, see here. This is important exception for you to do. It should implement method interceptor interface, and you have to import. You have to write a method called invoke, which is taking method invocation as parameter. And see here. This is the code whatever you want to write before invoking the actual method. Method invocation that proceed, we will call the actual target method. Then after the method is executed, this is the one which is executed after. Same like after advice. This is same like before advice. And in the catch block you are writing some logic. Same as throws advice. So in around advice you can do the three. Whatever the three advice are doing, you can do in around advice, right? So depending upon your requirements, we can choose which advice to use. Okay, now let us write one around advice. We'll see some issues here. And what is this method invocation object? What else can be done using this method invocation object? We'll see.
That's also like we only accept when we expect an exception, right? That is when we
Logging around advice. Now I didn't write cross advice. It should implement method interceptor. Method interceptor from arg.aop alliance. This is invocation object. Okay, see here method invocation dot proceed will call the actual target and return the return value. I'll keep it in a try catch block. Here I'll write some system.out.println. After executing in around advice. And here also before also I will write before executing around advice. After exception around advice. Okay, once I have this, I will return the return value. This method should return the return value. Now see here method invocation. By using method invocation at proceed, we are invoking it. We are invoking the actual method. This method invocation has a lot of methods. Method invocation dot, see there is a method called get method which will give me the method object on which it is invoked, and also get arguments will give the arguments for the method, and yeah, that's it. Method, get method, and get arguments will give the arguments. So whatever we are getting from the in the previous ones, like in after we are having method object and arguments as parameters. See in after advice we are having method object parameters. We are able to access the same thing here by using method notation, and we are even getting the return value also because we are invoking the method. So now if I want to apply it in the XML, I'll just write the bean around advice and in the interceptors I'll apply around advice. That's it. Now if I run the demo, it will run by applying all these interceptors. Yep, see. The interceptors are executed in the order in which they are declared inside the XML, if you observe. This is the order of execution of the interceptors also. Join point. Join point is nothing but a place where your advice can be plugged in. Now tell me, where are your advices? Where can your advices be plugged inside your arithmetic calculator? If I call add method, before calling add method, after calling add method, my advices are plugged in, right? Dynamically. So we say that add method is one join point, a point where my advices can join are called as join points. So add method is one of the join points. And if I call subtract method, will the advices be applied to subtract method also? Yes, to all the methods inside the bean, they can be applied, the advice can be applied, right? So the places where my advice can be plugged in are called as join points. So subtract method is one of the join point, because before after calling subtract method, my advice can be plugged in. So all the methods inside this target can be called as a join point, right? But now what I want is, I want my logging to be applied only to add method. I don't want my advice to be applied to subtract method, right? Till now my advice will be applied to all the methods. Each method is a join point, but now I want to narrow down my join points, right? And I want my logic to be applied only for add method, before and after add method and around add method, but not for subtract method. So I want to narrow down my join point. To narrow down my join points, I can use something called as a point cut, something which will cut the points. Okay. Two terminologies which I introduced: join point, point cut. I'll just reverse quickly. A place where my advice can be plugged in is called as a join point. By default, every method inside your class, target class, is a join point. If you want to reduce the join points, if you want to reduce the places at which advice can be plugged in, you need to use something called as a point cut. Point cut is something which can be used for narrowing down the join points. Now let us see the thing. An advice doesn't necessarily advise all join points. Advice need not be applied to all join points. Point cuts help in narrow down the join points advised by an advice. Okay. If advice defines what and when of an point cut defines where. Advice, is it defining what is this advice about? Tell me. If you just see this advice, what is this advice about? Is it about logging? Is it logging advice? Right? Where it should be applied, this advice? After. So advice class tells about what is it? It's a logging advice. When is it applied? Before, right? But where is advice telling about where? No, means before add or subtract or nothing. So advice does not tell where it will be applied. Point cut tells about where it will actually filter the join points. So point cut tells about where it will be actually applied. So if advice defines what and when, forget about this word aspect, because I introduced the word in aspect. If advice defines what and when, then point cuts define where, right? The point cut definition matches one or more join points at which advice should be woven, means should be plugged in. Right. Now let us see how to use it. I'll just come back again. This is an example of point cut. The name of the point cut class is name match method point cut, and the mapped name is add. So this is how to define a point cut. Okay. Then once you define this point cut, which is mapping only to add, then the next thing is you need to create something called as an advisor. Advisor is nothing but combination of advice plus point cut. Advice plus point cut is called as advisor, right? See, I am creating an advisor called as default point cut advisor. There are various advisors present. Default point cut advisor I am using in this case, where I am combining advice, referring to the advice, already advice, and point cut, the previous point. So this is an advisor. Advisor is combination of point cut plus advisor. Then this advisor is applied as a interceptor. Previously I applied advise as an interceptor. Then it was advising all the methods. Now if I apply this advisor as a point as an interceptor, now what all methods are advised now? Only add method, because this point cut is defining this point cut is defining only add. So now let us write this code for point cut slowly, one by one. In the XML, I will define a bean called point cut. Class is equals to name match method point cut, and it is having some dependencies. Map name value is equals to add. So this point cut is narrowing down the join points to only add. Then once I have point cut, I need an advisor. I will create an advisor default point cut advisor, which has two dependencies. First one I will map it to a reference of point cut, and second one is to advise. Okay. Now only I applied around advice. Around advice is narrowed down only to add, right? To be very clear, I will remove this before and after advices right now and apply this advisor. Now advisor will be applied as an interceptor instead of advice. If I run this now demo, I will call subtract method also. Let us see whether that around advice will be applied to subtract method also or not. Yep, see, advice has been applied to, oh, I didn't print the method name, right? Only for one method. It has been applied actually to add method only. I could have printed it, okay? So just advisor. Another name for advisor is nothing but an aspect. Aspect tells about what, when, and where. Right. Now we have mapped only to one method, mapped name. But if there are more than one methods, there is another thing called mapped names, which is nothing but an array. Here, if you want to map more than one method, you can use mapped name. Mapped name is of type string, and mapped names is of type string array. So you can use mapped names if you want to map more than one method. But there is a shortcut. Till now what we are doing, we are creating a separate point cut, and by using the point cut we are using an advisor. There is a shortcut name match method point cut advisor. Point cut advisor, as the name says, it's a combination of both point cut advisor. So here if you are using, you can specify the map names here only and advisor here only. You need not write a separate point cut class, separate bean for point cut. In your point cut bean, you are just defining mapped name. If you are using mapped name match method point cut advisor, you can do both. Let me tell how it is. Bean id is equals to point cut advisor class is equals to name match method point cut. Previously I used point cut. Now my name match method point cut advisor. Here only I can give whatever I want. The same property whatever I described here in point cut I can give, and this advise also I can. Right. Now instead of point cut, around advisor also. Instead of writing these two beans, I can write a single bean now. This is a shortcut. After writing this, we can use this one as the interceptor name, and I can comment these two. The output will be same. Okay. The next thing I want to introduce is aspect J. See, AOP is a module. Spring AOP is a module by using which we can develop our own aspects. But there is another framework called aspect J framework. Even before Spring AOP was invented, aspect J was much more famous for developing aspects. Right? There is a separate framework for developing aspects. But by copying aspect J functionalities, they developed Spring AOP, similar to aspect J. In Spring aspect J, there is something called as aspect J expressions for defining the point cuts. Till now, we wrote a point cut by using a separate class. We wrote a point cut by writing a separate class, and we are mapping the method names, exact method names. But in aspect J, they used aspect J expressions to map methods, to map the join points at which it can be applied. There in aspect J expressions we can use wildcards also. Wildcards means star, percentage, and everything we can use in aspect J expressions. Now I'll show you how to use aspect J advisor point. Okay, this is again an advisor. Again it's a point cut advisor, combination of point cut plus advisor. Point cut advisor. See, there is a point cut expression, aspect J point cut expression. In aspect J point cut expression, all the expressions will be of this form. Now I'll explain about this. Slowly I'll explain various forms of aspect J expressions. Just understand that we are using aspect j expression pointcut advisor, and this is an aspect j expression. Okay, and this is advice. Instead of using everything, instead of using name match method pointcut, we can use aspect j expression pointcut as well. See here, this is the meaning of the expression. Execution tells when the method is executed. First star tells about any return type. Now you want to restrict only to the methods which are having string as return type. You can write string here. Right? Star means this is a class name. Here if I say star, any class. If I want to say arithmetic calculator IMPL, I can say arithmetic calculator IMPL. And this is a method name. If I say star here also, any method. Dot means parameters. What parameters? So this is the meaning of the expression. Now tell me, this expression matches to what? Return type can be anything. On any class, any method which is having 2 in it, with starting and ending are class. Any method which is having 2 inside it, with any parameters. So now, tell me, this advice will be applied to all the methods of any class whose method name is matching this pattern. Right? Okay. Now I'll show you various expressions. Tell me what you understand from it. Anyway, come to AOP again. All this I'll come back, but just I want to show you. Yeah. See now, if you see this expression, this is an aspect j expression. What does it tell? Return type can be anything. com.training.calculator. This is a class name, and to any method on this class. Dot. Forget about this. This will be applicable only with annotations, which I will be talking next. And tell about this one. No, it's not return type. Access specifier or access modifier should be public. Return type can be anything on this class, any method with any parameters. Right? Okay. When using annotations, you need not write the qualified name. This is using annotations. But if you are writing in XML you should write the qualified name. Till now we didn't talk about annotations. Next we will be talking about aspects using annotations. There we need not specify the whole class. Okay.
So the first star is return or public?
First star tells about the access modifier. Second star tells about the class name.
Return type and the access modifier is like one star. There are two if you don't specify any access modifier, that means
It's public. It's public. Okay, with any modifier, with any return type. First one is return type. You can optionally specify the access modifier also. You can optionally specify the access modifier also. Maybe protected default also will be there, right?
So only public or only protected will be.
Yeah, in this case.
Yeah.
You can specify only protected methods if you can specify protected. But this is optional. Right? Now see, this will talk about all the public methods which are returning double inside this class. Now this talks about all the public methods which are returning double inside this class, all the methods. But first parameter should be double. All the methods inside this class, all the public methods inside this class, whose return type is double, and there are only two parameters, double comma double. Okay, this see here, within we can use like this. Previously we used execution of. We can say within. This is a package name. Any method in any class within this package will be matched. packages. This is only within that same package. If I use another dot here to match the join points within a package and its sub packages, you use another dot here. Right? And following point cut expression matches the method execution join points within a particular class. All the methods within this class. If you are using annotation, this is the one which is applicable. We'll come back to this later. Now tell about this one. Arithmetic calculator is an interface. You can match the method execution join point to all classes that implement arithmetic calculator interface by adding a plus symbol. All the methods of all the classes which are implementing this interface are matched by this point cut expression. And you can specify the bean names also, exactly. Bean and specify any bean whose name is ending with calculator. So these are the various types of aspect J expressions possible. In the afternoon we will see how to use annotations also. Using annotations again, this point cut will again come back to this point cut expressions. Using annotations we will see this. We will discuss later. Now coming back, this is the expression, right? Okay. Now see this code. This is the aspect the expression point cut advisor, right? And we are applying advice to it. Do I need to create a proxy again? After I have this advisor, do I need to create a proxy? Okay, let me create it here quickly. I am creating a bean. ID is equals to aspect J advisor. Class is equals to aspect J advisor. Aspect J, what is it? Aspect J expression point cut advisor. Aspect J expression point cut advisor. It's having a dependency expression. Expression is of type string. Value is equals to execution of star return type star, or I'll say com dot sapient dot arith where is it class name com dot sapient dot arithmetic calculator impl dot star of dot and I will add advice here. Now I'll comment this one also. Okay, now tell me, is this advisor telling what methods have to be advised? Yes, all the methods of this class which are taking any parameter, right? And this advisor. I have an advisor. I have to apply this advisor as an interceptor name here, right? So interceptor name has to specify and proxy has to be generated by using a proxy factory. I have a single class arithmetic calculator. For arithmetic calculator, this will generate a proxy for arithmetic calculator. I have another class unit calculator INCAL. For that, do I need to write again similar type of bean tag again? For same advisor, I want to apply for unit calculator also. Then I need to write something like this. Copy, paste. So unit cal, see proxy. Target should be whatever unit calculator, right? If it is. Is it not a duplicate configuration? Only this one is changing, is it? Right? Is there any way to reduce duplicate configuration? Auto proxy will come back. First let us try to reduce the duplicate configuration. Suppose if we continue like this only. Yeah, bean inheritance. See, everything is same inside the second bean. Everything is same except this tag. Is it? So what I can do, I can remove this one and remove this one. Can remove this one. I can remove this one. Parent is equals to yes.
And now you are overriding the target.
Yes, overriding the target. That's it. Right? But what if I want to apply a different interceptors? For this I want to apply, for calculator I want to apply aspect J advice, around advice. For unit calculator I want to apply only before advice. Again I need to override this one also. Right? So there are, even though we are using inheritance, again lot of duplicate configurations are present, right? So creating proxy, I want to avoid this step at all, totally. What I will do is, I will write a bean class is equals to bean name auto proxy creator. Bean name auto proxy creator, I am writing this one. Right? If I declare this bean name auto proxy creator, it's having some dependency. Let me write it. Bean names is of type string array. Bean names, I will say value bean name. I have and if I have another bean called unit calc, I can specify unit calc. So now what happens, see here, I will replace this with star. Now tell me, this advisor, is it telling where it should be applied? Where this advice should be applied? For everything. For everything. Star I use for everything. It will be matching all the methods of unit calculator as well as all the methods of arithmetic calculator. So now, when I say like this, when I define a bean called auto proxy creator and define the bean names, if I ask for a bean called calc, it will see whether any method of calc is matching this point cut expression. At least one method of that calc, is it matching this point cut expression? Yes. First of all, totally we said auto proxy creator. I am telling the Spring to create automatic proxies. I said I want a proxy automatically for calc. Now whenever I request for calc, it will check in calc. Is there any method which is matching this point, which is matching this expression? Yes. is matching, then instead of returning the calci, it will return a proxy automatically. So we need not create a proxy factory wheel. We can avoid this step by using auto proxy create. You can decide what all methods you want this around advice. You can write whatever expression. It's an expression, right?
It is applying the same for calcium and ion calcium. I want for ion calcium for different. I want for urea should be applied for point cut for subtraction.
You want?
The point cut for only subtraction.
Huh.
Okay, for unit calcium. For calcium I want all the joint cut. Okay, whatever joint point. Then for that, then this will be.
Then you want to apply. Okay, wait. I'll create another bean. No need of ID also for it. Okay, and here I'll say sub. Here I'll say only add, and here I will use only before advice. Any method matching this pattern, this expression should be applied this advice. Any method which is matching this one should be applied this advice.
But we don't use that interface for the arithmetic calculator. Earlier we were using
Yes. Now by using reflection, if I just give arithmetic calculator IMPL, automatically it can get all the interfaces which it is implementing. So that is also optional. Using reflection, it can get everything. Now if I say get calci, you will see there are two expressions, there are two advisors, right? Aspect the advisors. Whenever I ask for calci, it will see is any method of the calci matching this expression? Yes. So it will create a proxy applying this advice. Again, is there any method of calci matching this expression? It will create another proxy matching this advice. So proxy to proxy is created here, which is applied whenever I ask for calci. I will get a proxy to proxy, which is applied both. Right. So this is one of the bean name auto proxy creator. Can be used automatically, but we are specific the bean name, right? Even this is also not required. There is another way. Default advisor auto proxy creator. There is something called as default advisor auto proxy creator. Let us see what will happen. I will write a bean with class default advisor auto proxy create. I need not specify even the bean name. If I write like this, whenever I ask for a bean, whenever I ask context for a bean, it will see whether any method of the bean is matching any of the pointers, right? Because whenever you are using aspect J advisor point cuts, this point cut says about all classes in any package. Point cut itself has the information where it has to be applied, right? So whenever we are using aspect J expression point cut advisor, we need not create proxies by using proxy factory bean. Automatically proxies can be created.
But if you have calcium,
In aspect J expressions, you can use OR conditions also. So you can combine two expressions, right? Execution of something or something.